Nah, not another excuse. Lego, why are you going out there and making another video as an excuse to talk about Elias Pettersson? What are you doing, bro? This is so predictable. And yeah, I know, but it's August. It's the middle of the off-season. There's nothing to talk about. And I was feeling a little bit nostalgic. You know, we already made a video a few weeks ago talking about my entire story here on YouTube. I'm very proud of this video. If you haven't seen it already, then hey, please go out there and check it out. It's a very detailed look as to how I became myself. But in that video, I was talking about the past and a lot of the journey that it took throughout YouTube while making videos about hockey, growing, learning, and becoming what I am today. And because of this, there's been sort of an ethereal mood that's taken over my psyche the past little while. And I decided to just kind of go down memory lane, look at old video topics, look at old conversations that we had. And because I did some digging, and because we've been revitalizing a few of these old topics on the channel recently, I thought it would be a great idea to revisit one of the biggest debates of 2018. This was the year I graduated high school. Yeah, I was making videos full-time on YouTube while I was in high school and eventually all throughout college, but in 2018-19, there was a really big debate going on amongst Canucks fans and Sabres fans, and it was sparked up by a bunch of discourse thrown around by outlets like the NHL themselves. The Hockey News was in on this too, and it boiled down to two 2017 draftees and whether or not one was better than the other. You see, back in this time frame in 2018, the two best prospects in the NHL, according to outlets like the Hockey News, were Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks and Casey Mittelstadt of the Buffalo Sabres, although not necessarily in that order. You see, back in this time frame, most outlets had the idea that Casey Mittelstadt was better. And this was a big thing that a lot of Canucks fans got super salty about because, hey, in 2017-18, the season before this, Elias Pettersson was an absolute game changer. Look at what he was able to do in the SHL. He was the best player in the league at 18 years old. He was the best rookie to ever play in the SHL. He broke Kent Nielsen's record. He was doing all these amazing things, and he won the MVP and the Golden Helmet and all this crazy stuff. But Casey Mittelstadt was coming off a performance where he was over a point per game at the World Juniors, and he was under a point per game with the Minnesota Golden Gophers in the NCAA. Add to this the fact that Casey Mittelstadt had a small sample size with the Buffalo Sabres to end off 17-18, where he had 5 points in 6 games played, and you had this discourse surrounding the hockey world that said that Mittelstadt was the next best thing. Pettersson was the second next best thing. And in fact, this conversation is even deeper than this, because Casey Mittelstadt was a guy taken just 3 picks after Elias Pettersson in the 2017 NHL Draft. You see, the Canucks had the 5th overall pick, and admittedly, I was one of those folks that actually wanted the Canucks to draft Mittelstadt at number 5. I saw the talent in Glass, I saw the size in Vilardi, but I personally really liked the skill that Mittelstadt brought as a prospect. He played out of the Green Bay Gambler system in the USHL. He was pretty dominant over there, also was dominant with the high school league in Minnesota. And when it came to just the skills, the puck handles, the quickness, the dangles, Casey Mittelstadt exhibited some of the same skills that we saw out of guys like Patrick Kane as early on in his Minnesota high school days. Now, of course, Minnesota high school is not the best, most competitive hockey league out there, but Mittelstadt was this pure playmaker that was projected to go somewhere in the 5, 6, 7 range of the draft. The fact that he slipped to number 8, in some people's eyes, was already somewhat of a disservice. Meanwhile, you had Elias Pettersson, who was supposed to go a lot later in the draft. We had already talked about this in the Rangers video a few days ago, but Elias Pettersson was projected to go somewhere in the late 10s, maybe even somewhere in the early teens, which is why the Rangers traded up to number 7 to try to get him there, although to no avail. But alas, Elias Pettersson, as we had said, had the season of the ages in the SHL the next season. Casey Mittelstadt, not so much, but he was still pretty good in his Draft Plus 1. And back in this time frame, we made a bunch of videos going over why I thought, personally, Elias Pettersson would have been better. I said, hey, he's got a two-way game, he's got an ability to snipe guys, he's a little bit bigger, a little bit lankier, and for Casey Mittelstadt, I mean, the numbers were great, And you could say that Elias Pettersson did not produce as well as Mittelstadt did at the World Juniors in that season because they both played at the same time. But I don't know, there was just something in me that was saying, yeah, Pettersson is going to be really good. And I don't think he should be ranked as the number 2 prospect. I think he should be ranked first. Now, I guess in hindsight, we could all say that the guy that should have been ranked first in this time frame in 2018 was Cale Makar, but hey, it was Mittelstadt and Pettersson back then. Don't at me. As their careers have gone forward, though, Elias Pettersson just kind of took over the Vancouver Canucks. He was a point-per-game superstar right off the bat, and nowadays, I mean, he had 102 points in 80 games played, 39 goals, 63 assists. Casey Mittelstadt, to his credit though, has indeed improved after a few years of bouncing up and down throughout the Buffalo Sabres lineup, even having a stint with the Rochester Americans thrown in there. After having 19 points in 20 games played in 21-22, Mittelstadt finally broke out this previous season, getting 59 points in 82 games played. You can see the point production in every other year beforehand, 25 points, 22 points, 19 points. He just wasn't there. But this season, finally, the playmaking came together, 44 assists. He had more assists in this previous season than he had points in any other year prior. So, for Mittelstadt, he definitely had his breakout season, and he wasn't even playing in the top line. Those honors belong to Tuck, Thompson, and Jeff Skinner. So, what more for a Mittelstadt in the middle of the lineup who's not really getting the best minutes, but who is still finding ways to make it work? He led the Buffalo Sabres in primary even strength assist, I'm pretty sure, and he was one of the best players in the team's history in recent memory to get that done. So, realistically, when it comes to the skills that made Casey Mittelstadt such a valued prospect back in 2018, he's finally starting to exhibit these skills at the top league in the world. His playmaking, his first touch, his primary assist-producing qualities, how fun he is with the puck, how nicely he's able to feather a pass across for a cross crease. Casey Mittelstadt has a wonderful playmaking edge to his game, and soft hands to boot that made him such a valued prospect earlier in his career. It just took 5 years for him to really showcase that off at the NHL level. Meanwhile, for Pettersson, you could say that he has some of those same qualities. I think that when it comes to the way they read the game, Pettersson is probably superior just because he's had more experience in a top-line role. And when it comes to the puck skills, I mean, you can't really go out there and challenge Petey. Also, the shot, I'd say that Pettersson has a better shot than Mittelstadt. Overall, Pettersson's the better player. I don't think anybody's going to necessarily disagree. But at the end of the day, it's very interesting to take a look at how things evolved from 2018 until now, where we all thought that Casey Mittelstadt, who had Patrick Kane-like qualities in high school, was going to have a Patrick Kane-like debut with the Sabres after that very small sample size in 2017-18. After that stint, I remember this very particularly. Everybody was saying, oh yeah, Mittelstadt is so good at the World Juniors, he's so good in college, but he's a lanky guy. He's not going to have that immediate success in the NHL. But his cup of coffee in 2017-18, where he had those 5 points in 6 games, that kind of doomed his reputation, because right away everybody was like, oh yeah, look, he did it. He is that good. Wow, he's going to go out there and win the Calder. He's going to have a point per game year. But unfortunately, he did not have that immediate success right off the bat. He had 25 points in 77 games played. Meanwhile, Elias Pettersson had a 60-point season in that year. He won the Calder instead. So, for Mittelstadt, he had a lot of hype, but not really all the substance behind it in his first few years in the NHL. You could chalk that up to minutes, you could chalk that up to ice time deployment, etc. It's the Sabres of 2018-19. The system wasn't really the best back then under... Who was their coach at the time? Phil Housley? Like, I'm sorry, Housley, you were a great defenseman, but yeah, not the best coach, honestly. So... Oddly enough, it is intriguing to take a look at how everything went between Pettersson and Mittelstadt, the conversations that we would have back in the day. And I say back in the day like it wasn't just 5 years ago, but back in the day, this was a conversation. We had Sabres fans and Canucks fans arguing quite often as to who was the better prospect, Petey or Mittelstadt. But now, it's been 5 years, and they're both NHL players that are good, which is honestly what we all want to see, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about revisiting this Pettersson-Mittelstadt thing in 2023? What were your thoughts back in 2017 when these guys were drafted? What were your thoughts back in 2018 after these guys had their great draft plus 1 years? How do those thoughts differ from how you feel about these guys today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.